calendar of events.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed Enter your participant ID followed by You are in the meeting now. There are 3 participants meeting is being.
Hey, Dr. King, can you hear now?
Yes, now I can.
Okay, we're having trouble with the owl, so we're just gonna have you on the phone.
Okay. Oh, that's what that was. Okay.
Hi, Dr. King. This is Greg Davier. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you, Naomi. That brings us to water resources. Dr. King, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll be quick this morning. This is kind of a slow time for me. I will tell you, we have not done an allocation since last month, and I'm not in any particular hurry to do so because Mexico is already at 60,000 acre feet, so there's no rush there. And what I would like to do is get June charges. I've got James's, but I don't have EP1 or Mexico yet, and take a look at what our diversion ratio is really doing so I can get a better handle on it. At the end of last month, we did some tours, and I thought I'd do my little vacation pictures here. We started with a tour with just me and Gary and Mike Hammond that did sort of a pre-tour tour. And the following day, Gary and I testified at the Legislative Finance Council in the morning. And then we headed up to River Mile 60 to meet with the tourists who were just finishing at the southern end of their Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District tour. And I thought this was quite a remarkable picture because you've got basically four entities here who in surprisingly recent times have each been at each other's throats. We have here Wayne Pullen, who is the regional Upper Colorado Regional Director for Reclamation, and Mike Brain, who is the Deputy Commissioner for Reclamation, Jennifer Failer of Albuquerque Area Office. We've also got Mike Hammond and Hannah Risley White, who Hannah was just confirmed as the Director of the Interstate Stream Commission. And of course, Mike is the New Mexico State Engineer. We've got Jason Kasuga, and a former student of mine, and Stephanie Russo, a former employee of Samantha and lawyer for the district. And then we've got Gary and Greg out there. So it was quite a meeting of common interests. We all want to see this mile marker or River Mile 60 project go through to facilitate getting water into Elephant Butte Reservoir, which is really the best thing for all concerned in this current climate. Looking at the storage that we had, this is as of, let's see, midnight on the 11th. We had about 545,000 in Elephant Butte, 47,000 in Caballo, only 178 of Rio Grande Compact Credit Water. That's for Colorado's very small credit that they've generated. No San Juan Chama water. If we deduct out about 22,000 for not releasable, and that is the 12,000 acre feet reserved in Caballo and 10,000 acre feet in Elephant Butte, less the compact credit water, leaves us with about and we've already released 289,000. So our seasonal supply is looking like 859,000. Now, this is something we're obviously not going to release this year. However, we are only getting about 800 acre feet coming in right now, and I expect that to continue to decrease. We are up about 138,000 from last month. And if you remember, we've got two types of water in our account. You can think of it that way. Once it's in our account, it's all the same color, but we've got our carryover from last year, and then the water that we've been allocated this year. And so while we have a seasonal supply of about 860,000, about 700,000 of that 698 is, as you see there, is this year's allocation, or this year's allocatable water for 2023 water. So not counting carryover. And under the operating agreement, we will allocate that up to a maximum of 790,000 acre feet for the current year. And we will allocate water until October 31st. Once we hit October 31st, any additional water that comes in will be 2024 water for allocation. So that's where we stand now. If you look at what the river's done, last month we were sitting up here somewhere, and I said, we'll see what happens. Well, here's what happened. Spring runoff ended, and it is plummeting right now. I'm not sure how low it will go, but you saw it was about 794. Well, we'll check it and see, but I think we stand the potential here of seeing some river drying even going on. So that's interesting possibility, considering we were talking about, flows of 3,000 CFS just not so very long ago. These, by the way, this is net inflow, which is the change in storage in the reservoir plus release in acre feet per day. So this is what is actually showing up physically in the reservoir. And please do stop me if you have any questions. But that is what a spring runoff looks like. It's nice to actually see a functional one since we haven't seen one since 2019. It's good to have a functional spring runoff again. Looking at the river stations, I've got to put a caveat on here. You'll notice that at the upper end of the river, it's still flowing a little bit above average. Down here, when you get to Embudo, it's right about average. And then below average from Embudo, from Otoe to Cochiti to Albuquerque to Bernardo. And then I don't believe that this value for San Marcial is real. I don't see that much water upstream, and I sure don't see that much water showing up in the reservoir that we just looked at. That was not, this is showing, let's see, showing like 900 and something CFS total. That's, it's not there. I think this is some kind of a metering error, or it's a lot of water, but it could be that that lake that we have right out there at mile marker 60, taking up some of the flow that is going past San Marcial, but not making it to Elephant Butte, which is why we want to get that project going so badly. I will say that there is some stormwater still up in Abiquiu and some in Cochiti that were stored there because they could not exceed the downstream channel capacity of the reservoirs. We will see what they wind up doing with that, but that may come to be an issue a little later in the year here. One other thing I was going to mention on this one, I put the whole water year going back to October 1st of last year. And the reason is because you can expect this slug of water that you see right here in November and December, that will come down too. And it may even be quite a bit larger because of that stranded flood water that they have stored upstream. But notice that it's after October 31st, in which case we won't be allocating it this year. So if you were to ask me, are we going to get up to 790 of this year's water? I would flip a coin, and heads yes, tails no. Our precipitation, obviously the snow is all gone now, so we're just looking at total precipitation. And this is since October 1st. And this is down a little bit from last month because we are now getting into our monsoon season, and we have basically not had a monsoon yet. If we are to go over 790, it will take some help from the monsoon. I expect us to drop down below 500 CFS of net inflow coming into Elephant Butte. We've got 112 days left. 500 CFS is about 1,000 acre feet a day. So if we're down below there, we wouldn't make it, we wouldn't make the additional 90,000 to get up to 790 by October 31st. But if we do get some help from the monsoon, it is a distinct possibility. So that's really where we stand. The question and the need for the coin flip is what happens with the monsoon. Looking at our 3 to 4 week precipitation. So this is forecast made on July 7th for the period July 22nd to October 4th. And you see that the precipitation, there's not a real strong signal one way or the other. It's a little on the dry side, but there's not much question about what our temperature is going to be. And you probably didn't even need me to tell you that. It will be hot and maybe a little bit dry, at least for through this August 4th window. Drought conditions in our area, which we're right in here, you see this is from June 6th, and this is from July 11th. You see we've had virtually no change from there to there. Interestingly, though, this drought sitting here in Kansas did ease a bit, but what it really did is kind of move over into Missouri. So it's the drought is still sort of lurking off there, and I would not want to get too complacent here about it. Meanwhile, El Nino has deepened and strengthened a bit, and will probably continue to do so. If you don't remember the details of this map, it's time on the vertical axis, and the equatorial Pacific going across the horizontal from over here on the left side would be out there by Papua New Guinea, and on the right side here would be the coast of off the coast of Ecuador and Peru in South America. And you see that there off the coast of Ecuador and Peru, we've got some very high sea surface temperature anomalies up, some of it up over 3 degrees Celsius, which is pretty warm. And you'll notice that in general, it is warming from east to west as time goes on. So it is looking to strengthen during the winter. Hopefully that will help get some good storm systems going when we get into our winter snowpack season next, for water year 2024. This is another look at it. This may take a while to understand, but what this is we're centered on the Pacific Ocean here. This is Mexico. There's the Yucatan Peninsula down here through Panama, and then this is South America. This over here is Australia and Papua New Guinea. So you see this big stream of warm equatorial water stretching from east over to the west. That's what we're seeing in the bottom of this chart right here with these warm temperatures off in the Eastern Pacific. So in summary, this, by the way, is the group meeting at Elephant Butte Dam. Our spring runoff is done. Our river flow is, well, I would say plummeting. And we're about 700,000 CFS. It'll take a little help from monsoon to make it to the 790. Carrie, this is one of the reasons I'm avoiding doing even a hypothetical allocation, and that is because I want to get a better understanding of how our actual diversion ratio is going. We have an instantaneous diversion ratio right now of about 0.89, but obviously a very much lower diversion ratio for the beginning of the season. And I do need to take a look at it on a seasonal basis. So when I get those June charges from EP1 and Mexico, we'll take a look at how it has progressed over time and where it is likely to wind up, because the diversion ratio is going to determine how much carryover we have going from 2023 to 2024. And the charges will affect very much whether or not we have a spill from El Paso #1 into our account. It is a distinct possibility, and that's why I don't really worry. If we do allocate up to 790, that's fine. Because if they spill, every additional acre foot we allocate to them now spills into our account. So more allocation is good for us at this point to both districts. And Mexico, of course, is maxed out, so that they won't go any higher. But I don't think this will be a huge spill. Back in 2019, we had a spill of about 70,000 acre feet. I don't anticipate it will be nearly that high. I would be expecting something, a very few tens of thousands of acre feet, maybe 10, maybe 20 kind of numbers is what I'm thinking now. But with that diversion ratio, I do need to get a good handle on it, because that will obviously affect how much we're allocated this year, and therefore how much we'll carry into next year. And that's about all I have for today. I will then turn it over to James, who will tell you how it's going to be. Were there any questions for me before James jumps in?
Any questions from the board for Dr. King? Dr. King, I have one. Do you know approximately the quantity of water that's still stored upstream from the spring runoff or flood off?
Can you repeat that?
You know the approximate quantity of water that is still upstream for flood off?
I know how much is in the reservoirs up there, but I don't know how much of it is flood ups. What I have to do to find that out is get into ERGWAM, which is their accounting model. And that's a little bit time consuming. I haven't done that yet, but it is several tens of thousands of acre feet.
Thank you very much, Dr. King. Everybody.
Good morning. Dr. King, can you see my screen?
No, I can't.
I'm going to share it just so you know.
Okay, now I can.
I'm at that point where my reading glasses and my regular eyeballs are in the middle. Can't tell what I need. What do I need anymore? Okay, this is going to be the kind of the summary report for the month of June. Also, you could also look back at May in case you have any questions. We didn't do too many modifications on here, so these are pretty close to being final numbers. There were some preliminary numbers because I didn't have everything from El Paso, but I finally got those numbers. So May is pretty close to being actual of what we're going to be charged with. It may change a little bit. Last board meeting, I didn't include what we actually were charged at the array, because we had to use the Caballo release versus what was being diverted. So it changed a little bit, but so this number of 30,586 is what we diverted for May. This month in June, again, this is we've had this discussion before. It's been floated around. What's our max? This is pretty close to our max amount of diversion, which is 64,801. We're probably going to hit that again in July unless we get some kind of monsoon that'll knock us down. We've pretty much been close to capacity near about all the canals. We haven't had to cut back very much, so that's good news in one sense, because we are more efficient when we do have that water. And you always see that whenever we do allocate, we put a diversion efficiency target of about 55%, and we actually hit that this time. So that's good to see. That means that we're on target with all our projections. And the more water we divert, the better the efficiency, and that kind of shows it. And that's good to see. That means that we're right on target. To summarize the events for the month of June, we delivered 4,448 irrigations to approximately 78,715 acres. The charge to the farmer, 35,776. And of course, we did divert 64,801 acre feet. Down here to Texas, deliveries to Texas, I didn't have this last month, but now I have it updated. Month of May, we did divert 24 irrigations, irrigated 106 acres. Remember, that was only about 3 or 4 days, for that month of May. 45, acre feet charged this month, or excuse me, June, 40 deliveries, 300 acres, 182 acre feet. Still waiting for El Paso's numbers of what they did for us. They haven't sent those out to us yet, but they're pretty close to what we do here. It's almost a mirror image there. So that's kind of what we're looking at as far as the summary there. I'd like to also throw a graph in there just to give you an idea of what our acres were looking like and how our demand was. I'll zoom it just a tad bit. You can kind of see the demand, how it increased throughout the season. You see our dips here. The highest point was during one of those tours we did, which was around the 27th, I believe. We actually went to full capacity. We haven't been that way in a long time. The river was at 2,600 CFS, and that was pretty much all for diversion. But after a few days, you know, we bring that diversion down. But this would be the total acres, close to 18,000 acres on order at one time. This here coincides with the cotton run that we always talk about when we make plans. That's what this is. This dip here was actually when Stallman Farms put in one of their 3,000 acre orders. As soon as we got them going, that 3,000 went away, but right after that followed behind all the cotton orders that came in from down south. So that's what you see there. And then if you're looking at these sites down here, you can see the majority of the cotton. We're all pretty familiar. It's going to be down south. This is the west side canal. You can see they had the most demand there. Otherwise, everywhere else is pretty steady as far as their demand was concerned, but the west side definitely picked up most of the cotton down there. That's where it's located. So then also, this sheet here, I want to show you, this is a sheet that we actually send, that Dr. King was talking about, EBID's charges. This would be the summary sheet that I send out to Bureau and also to EP number 1. And this basically shows what we've burdened up to date for the month and also up to date. So you can see here for the Array Canal, that month of June, 14,745, Leesburg, 17,895, East Side, 11,064, West Side, 29,000. Once you get rid of the state line, then you can see the numbers change here. Except for the Array, of course, there's no change in the Salt Straight EBID. So to date, as far as the end of June, 27,878 acre feet diverted to the Array Canal. A little bit for the Percha private. The Leesburg Canal, 25,868 for the date numbers. California Extension, straight off the river. East Side at 14,682 to date. Del Rio, also straight off the river, about 1,000 acre feet. West Side Canal, 27,101. That's basically New Mexico, all New Mexico water there. So that would be a summary of what we have there. Now this one here includes the old May allocation. It's actually going to be 192, which is closer to the 14 inches that we allotted. So the number here is going to be closer to 94,000 once I add the 192 on this one. I just got that update on there. So so that 92,000 means that's what we have left to work with for the rest of the irrigation season. So if we're going back to our, go ahead. Yeah.
Explain the change in the numbers.
The 179 was the allocation that we received in May. That was the initial 12 inches. And then in June, he says we can get up to 14 inches, and that's where we capped it at 14. So we didn't have the number yet to get 14. We were projecting it. So now that we have, you know, these other numbers coming in, I can go ahead and put what it would be, which is 192,267. That'd be the number.
Actually, James, June is 226,857.
Okay, but 226 is more than 14, and that's why I went with the 14.
So our actual allocation is higher, but you're only
I'm doing it, yeah.
scheduling here for 14 inches.
Exactly, yeah. If you put the 220.
Right, just to clarify.
Yeah, correct. I'm doing it with the 14 inches, so that's that 192 number. Okay, good. All right, so where are we at here? Projection-wise, let me go back to our start and stop dates. These are the ones that we discussed early on. And kind of what we're going to be looking at for the season. Again, depending on the start date, this would be the whole district here, the 90,640 acres. More or less, if we all started May 1st, we would be ending around July 30th. We started later, you know, that's how that works there. So the array, again, since we started May 1st, we're still on target for July 30th. That's what we're looking at. The numbers show that we're on target to use that end date. So we're looking good there. As far as Leesburg also and the rest of the Mesilla Valley, actually, since we started May 15th, our target end day was August 13th. It's actually a little bit further on because we really didn't divert water until the 19th, 20th. So we have days there where we actually didn't put water in the system until then. So kind of pushed out about a week. So we're looking closer to the 18th, to the 15th, or excuse me, the 18th to about the 20th or so when we'll be out of water for the Mesilla Valley. So we're meeting all our targets. I throw this little graph here, and this is going to show you some actual numbers that we diverted. And so far to date, this just kind of gives you kind of a running total of what we've been doing. As you go through the whole system, you can kind of see that we're going to get close. Just finished here June. We're getting close with the 14 inches to actually end right about what we talked about, which was right here on the 19th. It shows here that we're going to be actually out of water for the full district on the 19th. Okay. So we're on target to meet that. Everything looks good as far as that's concerned. So I just wanted to throw these notes out of here because this is since we're going to have these meetings pretty close, we might want to start to make some announcements.
Yeah, that's the big one, I think.
Here's what we're looking at for the irrigation season ending. And this, like I said, again, this fits what we talked about early on. So there's not too many changes out of this as far as any announcements. There's not any surprises, let's put it that way. So I'm looking for a last order date, which we've been putting word of mouth already out there, especially for Hatchins. It's going to be hard to get letters out there. By the time you get them, it'll already be the last order date or past. So we're kind of putting word of mouth, and we've been in close touch with a lot of the farmers up there that July 21st is an official last order day. And we expect to run out water anywhere from a week after that or so. You know, work with everybody, make sure everybody got their orders in, that we do honor those orders. We have the water to do that, so we should be okay in meeting that last order day. So that's kind of what we're looking at for the Hatch Valley. July 21st, last order day, out by the 30th is the target, okay? Mesilla Valley, since we're going to have that earlier board meeting, we might want to see if we want to send out a notice or not, but the last order day is August 11th. That'll get us to the 18th to the 25th, somewhere in that range, which is, like I said, we're pretty much following all our projections, so it's not a big surprise to anybody on as far as those dates are concerned, but August 11th, that would be the last order day. And I think we'll definitely be able to honor anybody who places an order on that one. There's no doubt about that. So that's what we're looking at as far as that. So we can determine whether we're going to do an announcement via emails or we're just going to put it on publications like we've normally done, however, because it's a pretty big expense to send out an announcement unless we're going to include other things on there. But so that's what we're looking at. So we're on target, and that's what I'm here to report, that we're doing good as far as that's concerned. No worries there.
That is the question du jour. We need to put in their last order once the water minute stops. Questions from the board regarding that? Comments? So looking at those dates, I will note, obviously, we need to take action on Hatch today. We have no intention of having another slide, and there needs to be time to get everyone notified. With regards to the Valley West ending, my opinion that we go ahead and set that end date. It's much easier to notify people that there is more time. It is very difficult to notify them that there is less. And so letting them know that August 11th is the expected last order date, and these buckets, everyone's fairly easy adjustment for everyone to make. That's my thoughts on it.
It's been raining, but it ain't going very much, you know, it's just scattered here and there. When it does rain, we have rain out there. You walk on it right away, and start down for 2 hours.
I'll say we had our first arroyos run last night for about 2 hours, and they're making their way down, but they'll disappear by the time they get down through here, so.
Okay, as far as, we think that's what we're using, also posting. That's what it is, and it takes a lot when we don't. After flat rate, most. Going on, or they on, I would go, trying.
I've had several people ask me today when I go to the meetings, so, my phone I've already shot it to 3 or 4 to that. So, the people that wanna know, the ones normally that are concerned will ask me, and I'm sure if they ask me, I'll ask the one, probably. Now, it's up there, that's there all day, okay, I know we're getting close. So,
And I can concur with that. I've had numerous contacts over the last 2 days asking the same question. And specifically, one of the constituents asked, are you getting bombarded with this question? Yes. This time of year that we get bombarded with that question, because we need to know.
And I'll just jump in with this also just to support these dates. We're on target for delivering everybody who's ordered water. If you've ordered water and they're using water, matter of fact, there's quite a few that already run out of water. So we're on target of meeting, we're not in any danger of not being able to deliver the water. So I see that with these extensions here, even getting to the end of July here for Hatch, everybody who's ordered water and wants to use that surface water is getting their water. So we're not in any danger of not, you didn't give it all to me or whatever it is. If they ordered it, we delivered it.
you know, last year we got the sign, as you well know, James, a lot of us, this year, I don't feel that happening. You know, I can't predict everything, but I know it's going to you know, on the run, people can get their stuff in order a lot better.
Correct.
You know, you're told to get it all done at once, then you got rain like we did last year, it's not anybody's fault, you just can't do it. But this year, especially as hot as it is, everybody, they're sitting at the head of the seat, waiting to open it.
Well, just the biggest help to that, and I'll just throw a note in there, is that starting May 1st, the demand in Hatch, huge May 1st. Maybe not so much in May down here in the Bay Valley. That's what really turned the corner as far as using water, because May is when the Hatch farmers really took advantage of that.
Any other comments?
I agree, if we can get it out, everybody. Question, in your past, what is the latest that you had?
So the change in allotment, so change in allotment is nothing to occur.
That's what I
But
figured.
the allocated water that we have to divert, if we stop diverting, that water is still available to divert. And until we run out of divertible allocation for the allotment. And, you know, the biggest example I can think of is 2006, where it started raining, and it just didn't stop, and we shut down for a moment. Happens, and we just waiting to deliver.
Depends on the monsoon.
Yeah, and at some point, I think the decisions are made where it's the end now, so that we can deal with the end of the season business with the allocation allotments and diversion ratios and all that stuff. But we've extended about a week and a half, 2 weeks sometimes, so.
So we're looking at a 5 day.
Depends how that rain comes down.
It's not gonna rain. backing the date up is really hard. Mr. Edlund.
As we ended our irrigation season, things come in September, up our flood control dams or road start lines. We try our best to try to deliver water to those who take it. And the other thing now, we're prepared, better than ever before to start dumping that flood water into our drain. Capture as much as we can during the winter. Not in irrigation season. And then we have to consider also the fact that EP probably will be, if we end ours, but we will still do our best to try to use floodwater in New Mexico.
All that.
Crops is actually a fact. Salsa maybe.
It's any of these vegetables that they can't take a whole lot more water than what it, and especially if they get on it. Well, I mean, there's still some, you can see it, you got, yeah, mostly down here, like I said, just looking at demand, most of it is, pecans and cotton down here, and the crops that probably won't hurt as much, but. Yeah. Yeah,
It makes the river water go faster.
correct.
But it ain't gonna, you gotta have water, you can't just get on rain for the cotton crop.
Right.
Not enough like Texas, right?
Water going faster is a reduction in demand as well, though. So all of it, rain reduces demand. With that, the end date, what is below the board?
Are people running out of water down here?
Getting close.
We are.
Yeah, they're getting close. There's still some that are gonna definitely need the month of July to get through.
There's a lot of people don't even wanna use their water, so.
Yeah, those, well, I mean, if they place the order, we're diverting, we're delivering.
I know you do,
But-
your job. Water, what do you get?
Right. Well, we're trying to push the best we can and get the word out, and, sometimes it works out, so we'll just keep doing that for sure. But like I said, just these target dates that I put up here fit everything that we've done in the past, and it's putting us right on, especially even using the water. It's in there.
That's an educated guess.
Yeah.
Chairman Griggs, we need a motion to accept this.
We do. We need a motion to set the last
The
order date.
proposal, okay. I move to do so.
All right, I have a motion for Mr. Lack to set,
Okay.
and seconded by Mr. Calhoun, to set the last order date and expected end date as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing the chair, the ayes have it, the motion carries. Mr. Esslinger had a recommendation for notification that did not include a mass mailing. Are there any questions or comments about that from the board? Esslinger.
Would this be first year?
I wasn't here last year, so I don't know if a mailer was sent out. I don't remember.
The timing of things, sometimes whenever we have a good enough time and we know for sure that we're gonna end, we can send them out, but when we get such times with the board meeting moving in, like we are right now, it's kind of one of these notices deal, but we have times where we haven't sent the notice, we just send word of mouth.
So that wouldn't be,
No, it just depends how all the dates fall. Yeah, and right now we're falling, pretty good, so, got enough notice time.
Appropriate to find other ways to.
One thing, when we have this time that we have, like Dave is saying, we can kind of have a communication from the dispatcher to us. Of course, when you're turning in your orders, you kind of look at how much you've got left. You you have a little bit of time to get that done, when we do it like we did last year, grinding coffee, it catches up. I think that's when we not only send emails, but also literature out, so that we kinda gotta tag everything into the play, but this thing, my opinion, I was just talking about the hat. I've had a lot of people ask us to talk to this, try to back and forth, and the communication is open and it's out there. Everybody kind of knows who we're at.
That's an interesting point, Mr. Lack. I'm wondering if it's possible that every time someone touches the district, how that's communicated. All in place and order, reminder, last order.
Yeah, I think I'll definitely make an announcement to the staff so that they're.
Is there a way that can be added to the, point order email? So when I place an order for water, when that comes back and says your order's been placed, a reminder there or a reminder on the.
The best place, because there's the Farmer Services link, is be in a splash screen, and I can see if I can get that on there.
Comments about notification?
Yep.
Down for a farmer to find out, it's gonna go quick.
Thank you. Mr. Narvaez, I would like to give you some feedback on vacation season, my area. So for us, it has probably been, I don't remember it being better. I received 0 calls from his, concerned about, shows the fact that we got 65,000 acre feet. The canals in my area have been running at capacity more than everything looks like it's moving in a positive direction. Well done.
I appreciate it. I'll just say that, in your unit specifically, since you brought that up, it also just a thanks to you guys for allowing me to have that extra trainer. Because otherwise, we probably would have been a whole lot bad, but having Chewy there to pass the torch to a new ditch rider, I can't tell you how important that was. And, so yeah, we didn't see too much of a drop off. So yeah, I appreciate that. That's really what pushed us.
The feedback for James on.
All right, appreciate it.
That brings us to, general administrative. Byron.
Good morning, President, members of the board. I'm going to start off with the cash report. We're doing fine. Oh, possibly not. That one? But that's the,
The top left will just show anything you need.
okay. Okay. Here. You see it? Okay, anyway, back to cash. Things are looking good. Compared to last year, we've been pulling about the same amount of money from our investment accounts. So we're spending it about at the same rate. We had put in some, excuse me, at a little faster rate, which is why We are ahead, that's as of today's. We did pay off our server note, last month, so that is included in this cash balance. So is there any questions about the cash? Oh, don't do that. The cash is not in your book. No, it's because I do it the morning of to make it most, frequent. How do I? Go back to the bottom. Okay, and then I will go to the balance sheet. This one, there's not much to say either. We're doing fine. Sorry. This is as of May, so the cash flow, balance, but, as of May, we were, about where you would expect us to be for this time of year. I have nothing really else to say about the balance sheet. Do you have any questions?
Are the receivables similar to what they are previously?
Yes. So the LID again, the local improvement district, I will zoom it in. Not much happening there. The only benefit there is, it is earning more interest on its investments in the state and, local government investment pool than it, was last year, so it's doing better that way as well. And then the, profit and loss statement for the operating account only. You've got your percentage of, year-to-date budget. I put it year-to-date again this month. The reason the assessments are over, because this is the full budget for the assessments, is because we were doing pretty good on collecting prior year assessments. This reflects the miscellaneous income from all those special use fees where we were collecting the application fees. Payroll expenses were still a little low. Remember, we only did a partial month of irrigation system in May. Some of the others went up. We did get some more fuel expenses recorded in here. Engineering is just, we need to just allow for their office expenses. The office expense here, because legal and consulting are about where they were. Office expense is above budget because a lot of people have been paying by credit card. And we record the credit card fees that we collect, there's that 3%, and our miscellaneous income, but then we charge the expense here to office expense. And they're even paying some of their special assessment fees by credit card, and those fees are 3% of a large number, so that's a large number, so that's why that went over. Insurance is a bit higher. It just needs to be increased a bit, and same with these other ones. They're the same. Utilities is for the gas in January, and travel is because there's been more travel than originally anticipated. Interest income is significantly higher on the investments. We're still making, even though we've pulled money out of the account, we're still making around $25,000 a month in interest. Receivables are still doing fine on their interest because, again, we record those when people pay their past years or the overdue bills. And this interest is from the note that we had for the servers that we bought on a note, which, as I mentioned, was paid off in June, but you won't see that reflected here. The plan and hope is that we will be able to bring a budget adjustment resolution before you at the board meeting after the August 2nd board meeting. Yeah. And that should, because we have this $475,000 here in income that we didn't anticipate or didn't budget for, that should cover all of these, higher than budget. Any questions?
Questions regarding financial report? Bring on that moves us to contract renewal.
So we have two contracts, before you, today. The first one is a professional services contract with John Douglas. He is our avian expert. This is year 4 of 4 on this, contract series, and there were no changes. The second one is with Kosh Solutions. They provide our, computer and IT services, service, basically helping us with things like if you have a computer glitch or you need to add a new person or things like that. They, excuse me, have year 2 of 4 on their master agreement. They have presented it with a 9.2% increase in their cost, and they have changed the cost from a very detailed listing of so much per person for this, so much per person for that, to as long as you stay within the certain number of people, we're going to charge you this amount. And that 9.2% increase is within their master contract limit of 10%. And staff recommends approval of both.
Questions on the contract renewal? Ms.
I
Eslinger?
had a question on the, is this tied to any,
No, I think it's general, whatever time we may need those type of services.
Eslinger, would you please
John Douglas has been with us, back since 2008, when we entered into, arrangement with IBW, some of the restoration sites that were required, environment impact statements that they caused to abide by, and we felt it necessary that as those restoration sites were restored, we could counter with sites along with the critical habitat, the silver flycatcher, but also in some of our own water smart grants, we've been doing off levee restoration on areas where we can farmers to restore their habitat and use to do remarkable what happened over the years in our site up at Wasteway, all sorts of so he's in here primarily just to guide us. He got in as a device where he can make the call and learn what kind of so that's how we use it. So environmental community or what we need to do. Best of what they're
So, yeah, Gary, when you were up at our shed the other day, Don Ann asked a question, and I don't know if we've got an answer yet, but she may have already. Is there any way we can tap in to y'all think, you know, all our farmers now, we got that same crap we gotta do this county assessment on sustainability. And his numbers, that they could be used for, in our case, it's up there close to our farm, would really help us on our that work that we gotta do now. Is there any way that could be, I mean, is it a private deal, or could we tap in there? Because there's farmers up and down, if they need that same stuff, that we may be able to take his count. Say, this is what's close to our farm or something, in other words, how can a farmer access that to help his?
We already sent it to your.
Well, thank you. See, there's, thank you.
Yeah, but clearly, yeah, we have critical sites that everyone pays attention to. So, he actually counted those critical sites up and down the river, and then those off the river, like your site, he does those as well, and that's where it doubled in 1 year. You know, amazing what he said. He said he saw, you know, horned owl at your place, plus some kind of a woodpecker that's usually in the Gila down here in the valley. So it shows that you develop these restoration sites, in the wildlife they enjoy.
All right, any other questions regarding the contract renewal? Hearing none, what's the will of the board on the contract renewal? I have a motion from Ms. Esslinger to approve the two contract renewals. Second from Mr. Nunez. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Here, the ayes have it, the motion carries. Thank you very much, Ms. Cyrus. Brings us to our manager's update. Mr. Esslinger.
Mr. Chair, it's been a busy, June. We, have been on quite a few tours in the month of June, but the last one of the month was probably one of the most enlightening and most successful that I believe since I've been with the district, because it included, a 2-day tour, and it started in the middle of Rio Grande, and then it came all the way down to new El Paso Index at Cochane Bridge. But what was difficult was developing the tour, which we had in place around what we got word of that the Legislative Finance Committee was meeting at the same time as the tour here in Las Cruces. And so they wanted, participants of my staff and, also of the folks that live in this area to speak at that. So the first thing on, Tuesday, the 27th, that morning, we had already sent folks to Albuquerque to tour on that portion of the, where that began at the Middle Rio Grande. We had Greg Gavier, our president, Eric, and, Francois in that for us, while Bill King and myself, Samantha, we stayed here in Las Cruces. So that, LFC meeting started out in the morning at 9 o'clock. It's well attended by all the legislators on that committee, pretty much 31 or more legislators. So they didn't, if you saw the pictures of the tour, you didn't see any state legislators. They were all in the legislative council. So that was difficult for us to try to get. Anyway, we had a panel. The first panel was local perspectives of the Texas, New Mexico, and future the Lower Rio Grande. And Mike Hammond was started off. He was our state engineer. I spoke. Adrian Widmer of Las Cruces spoke. Dan Bernal spoke. We all had about 10 minutes to give our presentations. And what we did was pretty much, I gave a perspective on agriculture and what was at stake for post-settlement, and Adrian gave hers on the municipal growth, and Dan Bernal gave his on the research that could come out of the development of this case. And that went very well, lots of questions, and certainly, there was a lot of people in attendance. And certainly there were board members in attendance as well as farmers, so that was good to have, farmers there at that meeting. Second panel was the settlement implementation and opportunity innovation, and Phil King, was on that panel representing us. John Longworth was the manager of the office there. Jennifer Baylor was the area manager for the Bureau. Hannah Wisely White was the interim director in the state. And Mike Hammond was also on, and they, were on the desired outcomes of long-term roles of the state. Talked about rethinking sources of water supply. Phil gave a great report on plans for major special appropriations and capital outlay for infrastructure improvements. And then, of course, Taylor spoke about federal funding opportunities. And in the audience was one of the high officials, Michael Bain from the Bureau of Reclamation, Secretary of the Bureau, who so immediately after our two panels, Bill and I and Sam, we rushed to proceed to mile marker 60 and joined the tour that was coming down from the middle of the event. We all stayed in Jersey that night. There's at least 30 talking, four officials staffers from Congressional Office of Funding Stansbury, as well as the Heinrich. We felt like we had the right players at work. And then we also had Bureau folks from our regional director from Salt Lake, Wayne Boland was there, and Jane, the deputy secretary from the Bureau in Washington, D.C., Senator Baylor and folks in her office. Then we had the state engineer and his entourage of folks that came along as well. Anna was there from Interstate Streams. And then we even had a farmer from the Middle Rio Grande follow us all the way down the tour. When we started our tour on the second day, we gained people, those that left after the first day. Albuquerque tour. And again, we had farmers as well as board members meet and for lunch in the morning and pretty much from the weekend. And on the afternoon after the poster, we saw the south end of the city valley all the way down to the new. So it was a wild 2 days of touring, but we had the right people, I believe, on the tour, and not knowing exactly how to get all the information to everybody. I think my engineering office, because I never would have thought of this, because I never figured it out. COVID hit, had a chance to see a QR code where you take a picture and boom, you know, you can order something and not starve when you went to the restaurant. So my staff, engineering staff, developed this. So every staff, every legislator that didn't get on the tour, clicked on this, they got the tours from the comfort of their air-conditioned room. It says 110 degree weather, we were 105 degree weather we were doing. But this is that tour, and I think you have this. If you don't, we have a copy for the audience. Please take this and click on it, and you'll see the virtual tour. And I again, congratulate my engineering office for helping me put this together. It was slick. It was very good. Thank you.
The one that came up with the QR code.
But it's way outside my league. But I really thank them for doing it. And so, with that, Mr. Chair, we had a very successful tour, and I think result of it, we were able to got 3 of 9 sites that were on that down the road. If this funding continues to provide the opportunity to hold of that. So with that, that's the end of my.
Any questions for Mr. Esslinger on the, Great Grand Collaborative Tour? Please continue.
Okay, B and C are in your book. They're just news articles. One is, CNE News, highlighting what the federal judge urges the Supreme Court to do to adopt the Rio Grande settlement. That's on page 49. And then also the New Mexico political report. Legislators hear the infrastructure, climate change, and requirements. So the last one is a ditch break report, and that is that we had no ditch breaks up to now. Meeting, and I put out for you to see is runover report, and that's the only thing we've had in happened 7-7. But if you look at the picture, notice where it ran over, and you can notice the canal is climbed to the top. This is on Highway 28, just where the goes under 28, below Pajaro Road and river. And what's unusual about this photo is you'll see a wall, concrete wall. Well, years ago, when we started our maintenance and operation of the canals at the Bureau, we noticed that there were banks that certainly were susceptible to gophers, trolls. So we started, it's not a policy, it was just something I asked maintenance to do. That was, if we had over 30 districts in the same area, we would then initiate maintenance at called a core wall. And we just took 30 mix, buried about 5-6 feet deep, a little wall, and it would just block the penetration of course and gophers across the alleys. These banks were weak. And a lot of people don't understand that these canals were built with the dirt from the area that was around there. And some of it's sandy, some of it's loam, some of it's a mixture. And it blows me away that we can still run water through these ditches today. But these kind of improvements show that this water over top, because it was just a little low on the bank here, and obviously the water got over the top, but it didn't break the bank, and it didn't let out a big farm, and in a concrete ditch. So I just wanted to point that out, that we do have these core walls, not everywhere, but usually they pop up when we have 2 or 3 incidences in the same place, and then we try to dish, and it works sometimes.
Now, what do you put in that quarter there?
This is slurry mix. Yeah, we had about a 4-inch bucket with a stinger, go about 5 feet, and slurry it in.
Now, what were you storing in?
In the trench, this core wall, this wall that you see. It's a handout.
Oh, it's a handout, okay, sorry.
If you look,
Okay, there you go.
there it is. See that wall?
Yeah, I see that. It's cement then.
Yeah, it's cement. It's a slurry mix of cement. Very low ratio of cement.
Liquid cement.
It works. Yeah, most cases.
Sometimes you just put clay, they don't even have to be, really, they get that, put going. I don't know why.
So that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Esslinger. Any questions for Mr. Esslinger? Brings us to engineering and maintenance. Project update?
Members of the board, Mr. President, engineering is, starting to, looking forward to the maintenance season. permits are dwindling, as you will see today. And that's it, we're gearing towards the maintenance season.
Thank you. Permit.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Right, let me get set up here. Okay, let's kind of summarize what we have here. We have a total of 35 permits, 27 new Comcast, fiber optic aerial permits, maybe 5 new buried Comcast, fiber optic cable, or permits, 1 new buried telephone cable by Quest, 1 existing culvert crossing, and we also have one permit that's a 10-inch buried water line for the Village of Hatch. So that's 32 Comcast. I think we talked about this last prior meetings to this also. So I'm gonna go over the ones that are outside of the Comcast ones, which is outside of the 32. So we have a Quest one, which is up on your screen here, and this is job number 113, license number 073. And, this is a telephone line by Quest, so we've seen these before, but if you have any questions, just let me know. Next one here is job number 273, license number 196, and Javier Garcia. This is an existing culvert crossing the lower Timberine lateral. Third one we have here is job number 296, license number 211. And this is a 10-inch buried water line for the Village of Hatch, and it's pretty much along Highway 26 and Hall Road, Hall Road. It's right in that area. Other than that, these are the 3 that stand out outside of the Comcast one.
Questions regarding the permits that are outside of the fiber optic permit? Questions on those 3 permits?
I don't have pictures of them, right?
Pictures, what do you mean?
If they run parallel and that kind of stuff.
So I think we just asked the question, are there any parallel permits?
There's no parallel, yeah. Right.
Would you go to 273, please, or job 273?
Yes, sir.
So, on my list, it says that the term is 0 years, which I'm assuming is a typo.
July 12th, 2023, is that what we're looking at, right up top?
I can't quite read it at that Zoom. So the term is for 0 days. I'm confused about the term of this permit. The term is from July 12th to July 12th.
Oh, it's 2023, it's 10 years, 23rd, or the 23rd.
Typo here.
33rd.
Yes, I would. So on the list, just to clarify, the list presented in our board book, there's a typo, this is 0 years.
Okay. I guess we
Thank
can
you.
make some adjustments there.
I can now see that says 2033.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate the offer.
And, with the total permits, with the land fees and all that, it comes up to a total of $140,260.
Thank you.
Just give you an idea.
We have 1 permit that is requested so that the fees to be waived, that is the culvert crossing. I have reviewed the aerial photography of that. It does appear to indeed be farm use. Questions or discussions on the waiver of fees? Are there any of these permits that any board members will wish to vote on separately? June, do you have any requests for us to act on any of these separately?
Far end,
No.
I recommend approval.
So we have a total of 35 permits pending approval. Are there any additional questions on any permit? Then what is the will of the board? Motion for Mr. Nunez to approve the 35 permits as presented. I have a second from Mr. Frank Paul Solopek. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion carries. The 35 permits are approved as presented.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brings us to the legal update.
On the legislative side of things, we're focused primarily on farm bill issues right now. All feed bills have been sort of introduced or are in the works and soon will be introduced. We don't have a text yet of the farm bill. We're waiting for that. Then, of course, Gary gave you the update on the state side, which is pretty simple in the summertime. And then I'd actually like the state engineer's office to cover item B for us. This was a gift from our state engineer, an order recently closing the hot springs basin. So a little background on that. The EBID pursued about 19 protests up there, and the state engineer recently issued an order closing the basin totally. So Ryan, would you mind taking over and giving a little bit of background there?
Yeah, I wasn't too involved in that process, actually. Stephanie and Jason manager up there, after one involved. That done, working with the hearing, geology bureau, collect the data and so forth. That basin. That's the gist of it.
Huge thank you to the state engineer. You know, this can be frustrating for your average bear who doesn't understand how water rights work, but the state engineer has to have data supporting his decision. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily get developed in a way that we would like to see it happen unless we protest. And so in this instance, Eric flagged for me everything that was hitting in the hot springs basin, board approved protests of everything, include them, and in conjunction with the state engineer's office, water rights division, and the hearing proceedings, developed the evidence we needed to essentially set the state engineer up for success. So he did what we requested. Politically, it's probably not very popular for this board. We closed the whole basin to individuals who likely want water in that area. It was found to be tributary to the Rio Grande project, so there can be no more new appropriations. That was a huge win for you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Sal. Thank you. Mr. Lang.
Sam, can you kind of tell me real quick, you don't have to be exact, how big is when you say the hot springs basin, give me kind of an idea, where is that at?
Well, I'd actually like one of my good doctors to answer that, probably Dr. Fox. And the reason I say that is because the answer is highly dependent on when you're talking about. So very early in the Rio Grande project history, that area was a small area. Development was not very much. It has come in waves over the years, and then we saw that huge flood of requests for new appropriations. So water that had never been put to use previously, they were going to come in and request a bunch of appropriations. So Eric can kind of give you a little bit more factual background on what we were working with there.
Dr. Paul.
Dr. Paul, originally back in the 30s, hot springs basin was limited to area there around here, where, of course. But there had always been farming to one degree along basically the factory. So as that development occurred over the years, the state engineer recognized that, well, we should declare that. So ultimately, that did occur. In fact, not unlike the quote that we've seen, you know, elsewhere. But a number of those were granted, despite the fact that, well, yeah, I mean, the state applied, and of course, permitting was, without further exploring the extent to which, well, project, in fact, that, so for many years, in fact, back, when I was the Lower Rio Grande Basin advisor, we didn't see hardly any activity with regard to, interest in respect to new appropriation. All pretty much focused on, fights, in between the houses, right? More recently, here over about the last, what, 4 years, Bud? You know, yeah, we've seen this curious interest in requests for new appropriations, underground water for irrigation. And I would surmise that that would probably have a lot to do with the fact that, stock conditions have dropped a lot. Nevertheless, you know, EBID has, maturing the Rio Grande project, and what's more, the granting of new appropriations in the past, could be setting, OC up for problems, right? So we protested several of these and were successful, before with opposing council. Dr. King and I prepared expert reports, simple research, and, my opinion, is such a problem. Obviously, the OSC, took note of, this problem and it effort, being over the hydrology bureau to also get involved, had already done involved. So ultimately, we arrived at closure. Yep.
And then, so it basically runs from the top of Columbus to.
Well, I would like to point to the screen at this point,
Oh, there it
because
is.
one of the reasons why EBID is not to be trifled with lately is because my good doctors read my mind. And, so this is the, thank you, Dr. King, the map actually for the basin. And, you know, this is not a small basin.
Big.
Right, and it did take a significant amount of work. I mean, we dealt with a lot. I think it was actually 17 protests in this basin, and like 9 of them got docketed against us in the month that we were going into trial in Texas. So you want to talk about moving and hustling to get every ball to stay in the air at that time. But we did it. So big thank you to the state engineer for hearing us out. I'm looking excited. It was a big success for us.
One more question, I'll shut up. Those people that have been irrigating cities in those places, and I can sure see with the 3 of them up there that are my friends, and say they lost a well or something, they haven't pumped it for a while, and then they want to start back. What is the statute of limitations between the time they pump and they start up again, if they want to pump again, if they have pre-existing water supply?
So that is a legal question that is determined based on the facts of each individual circumstance. And remember, a closed basin doesn't necessarily mean you can't apply for replacement wells or get offset to develop further, things like that. It just means there's no more new water there. Right. All of the water is spoken for, probably, and then some, kind of like in our basin. So, there's gonna be a process designed for each individual person.
Because I want to get some questions on that.
And I think so, especially our northern board members who are closer to this region, you know people that live up there. This was not popular when EBID was doing this. So, and we did have a lot of rough hearings with pro se litigants who were very angry at our board of directors and farmers. However, this is not going to cut them off. It is going to make them play by the same rules you have to play by. That's the important point for us.
Thank you.
And, on your question, Mr. Black, about how big is the hot springs, looking at that map, I think it's about 300 square miles.
Well, I know those areas, I know where they're at. I knew it'd grown a lot from just the little hot springs down there, and that's why I asked the question. Because there's a lot of people, listen, my brother had that Winston store, so you can just imagine where this people were at, it's nearly in the middle of that thing. And there's people on both sides of that who I run with pretty hard, that are gonna ask me some, they've already asked me some, and I've been straightforward with this, Greg, and told them basically why one of the big things is happening. You can't be appropriating water upstream when you got a fight with Texas South. It's just that thing. I'll shut up.
Well stated.
Well said.
First, any more questions from the board? Comment from Mr. Hernandez.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Sam, did the state engineer order also restrict the amount of water that can be pulled from domestic? So I assume domestic wells are still allowed.
I don't,
They're still at 3 acre feet. Still be killed by 1,000 tons.
one. I think the order already applied to that, since they were at 1 acre foot. So this was just to close new appropriations, but that order already applied to them. They're already at 1 acre foot.
Thank you for the
We
comment.
did fight some of those fights.
Thank you for the comment, Mr. Hernandez. Paul, do you have anything else?
Lots for closed session.
Do you have anything else you want to discuss at this time?
So, I went ahead and let Gary, I was gonna have Gary do the Texas v. New Mexico update, but he glossed over it. So just so the audience is aware, the special master has ruled, in the Texas v. New Mexico case, and so that will be handled by the Supreme in normal for original action. That's all.
Thank you, Mrs. Saltek. I just want to mention that Saltek has been extraordinarily busy since our last board meeting. It's very successful in the things the board has asked the district to carry out, and I appreciate the extraordinary efforts that she has put in. So, thank you, Mrs. Saltek.
That's what I would point out is, I didn't see any pictures of Naomi and I in this packet, Dr. Keaton, but we did help put the whole tour together. And a big thank you to Naomi for all of her work, because behind the scenes, people like us are the ones that are actually cranking out the invitation letters and setting up the tour buses and the hotels and calling TRC multiple times, because I don't know if anybody actually lives in TRC and answers the phone, but she figured it out. So big thank you to Naomi for making that federal tour such a success. And then, of course, to MRGCD's counterpart, Tara, who just right there alongside Naomi's work.
Thank you. With that, we come to HR and safety update.
Sure, I just asked you, turn your attention to about the second to the last page in your book. Why? And at a quick glance, you can see some of the issues that we're facing right now. Currently, at this count, 72 employees, but that's even been of this fire. We have lost 3 fires in that last phase of this fight. So it's strain on our vice and his crew, but we've got it covered. We know what we're going to do to get through the match, but it seriously affects, you know, how we're going to develop a system to bring back in and hire them to replace a lot of these folks that are leaving. We are in the on side of things, and we're in the process of trying to hire those people in. But again, it's due to wages. We have a lot of people, if you look down at the years, grateful we have a lot of folks here that's been here service, and certainly a great number of them between 10 and 20 and 10 and 30 years. There's 32 of those, 7 of those that have been here for a long time, and I'm grateful for that. And certainly, the years of service of certain employees here that are doing dedicated, they're doing a great job. Of Barunda, David Hernandez, these guys 30, 20 in Central Texas. Lada, 23 years. Guys are incredible. Meeting, and certainly we've got some retirements this month. Steve Cortez, we already recognized, and then also we got retirement notice of Frank Pancho Sloan. Last day was June 30th. So, you can see we're doing as best we can with what we've got, and certainly working with their cross-trained backhoe operators running water and ditch riders running backhoes. It's phenomenal. We have some employees out on workman. That's the story that remember that we cover our bases, ways that are needed, and find it. Those that train and highlight of what the do for you and the service.
Thanks, Mr. Esslinger, and I want to mention how much I appreciate this written report. It does give me the bird's eye view every month of how otherwise, so I appreciate it. Any questions from the board regarding the HR update? Hearing none, that brings us to the suspension and transfer hearing. Are you ready? All right.
Good morning.
Good morning. At this time, I will call to order the board convening to act. I will call to order board sitting as a board to hear suspension and transfer applications. The board is convened to act upon applications by landowners in the district to transfer water rights pertinent to lands within the district which are not suitable for irrigation or capable of being properly irrigated to other lands within the district. These applications are filed under Section 73-13-4 of the New Mexico statute. This board will decide if, within their judgment, the other lands within the district may be profitably and advantageously irrigated. The applicants are identified as listed on Exhibit A. The applicants were required to publish notice in any newspaper published within Doña County of EBID taking action to consider a resolution allowing the transfer. Publication should have listed the time and place of this meeting, listed the action to be taken by this board, listed the description of the move to and move from land, and listed the reason for the requested transfer. Staff have a copy of the notice of publication, where all of the required points in the publication. With the last publication date made prior to this hearing. We will now proceed with a presentation by staff. After that, the board members may ask questions of the staff. Carl.
We have 9 voluntary suspension requests for a total of 5.12. And that's 5.12, and staff recommends approval on all of the voluntary suspensions.
Are there any questions from the board members regarding the presentation from staff? At this time, the board will take evidence and testimony from the applicants or their representatives or any persons who are here to protest the application. We will proceed with any presentation by the applicant. After that, the board members and EBID staff can ask questions of the applicant. The applicants or their representatives introduce themselves. Here hears no applicant. Are there any protesters who wish to speak? If so, please identify yourselves for the record. President hears no protesters. Are there any other comments? Hearing none, the chair will now entertain a motion to have a resolution to approve or disapprove the application. What is the will of the board?
I move to approve.
I have a motion for Mr. Frank Paul Stoltek to approve the resolution. I have a resolution number.
2023 S&P 007, I don't know if that's the number, if that's just.
I believe it is. Is that what we use for pensions, the S&P one? Thank you.
That's what I remember.
The resolution is 2023 S&P 007, and a second from Mr. Lack. Any discussion? Hearing none, discussion is closed. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? According to the president, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. I will ask that the resolution be formalized as called for by section 73-13-5 of the New Mexico statute, and that the secretary of the board immediately certify and file with the state engineer a true copy of the resolution and action of the board. If there are any protestants who disagree with the action of the board, you may appeal this decision directly to the district court as provided under section 73-13-4 of the New Mexico statute. The chair will now entertain a motion to adjourn the board sitting to hear the application. I have a motion from Mr. Black and a second from Mr. Nunez to adjourn the board sitting as a board to hear suspension and transfer applications. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? In the chair, the ayes have it. We are returned to open session.
Thank you.
At this point in time, we have completed the open session agenda. And so, a plus to those attending the meeting today, we're done early. A negative, we're done before the food is here. So I'm sorry that we don't have lunch for you, but I am going to suggest that the board take a 5-minute recess and then come back and immediately go into closed session. We have much to discuss. Thank you. We are in recess.
Naomi, can we do a restart now?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and shut off the Zoom as well. Hold on, let me see if I can do it without shutting off Zoom. Give me 1 second.
I'd shut the whole thing down.
Yeah, let me shut it off and then, I'll restart it and see if I can get you guys back in.
Okay, I'll hit the link again.